Okay, the time is now 5:20. We're going to start the Finance and Purchasing Committee meeting, 5:21. Roll call, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Purchasing Committee meeting for Monday, March 18th, 2024. Roll call.
Alderman Newsom.
Present.
Alderman Bolton.
Present.
Alderman Hayes.
Present.
Alderman Florian.
Present.
Alderman Guzman.
We have a quorum. Item C, approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from February 20th, 2024?
So moved.
I second.
Motion by Alderman Florian, second by Alderman Bolton. Are there any questions to the motion? It being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item D, public comment. Is there anyone that wants to speak on any agenda item on the Finance Committee? Being none, we're going to go on to item 2, new business. Item A, a resolution waiving competitive bidding and approving the purchase of a 2024 Chevy Tahoe LT from Jones Auto Group in the amount not to exceed $79,900. The Fire Department is requesting approval for the purchase of one 2024 Chevy Tahoe LT. This purchase would be from John Jones Auto Group, who are one of only a few businesses that have command vehicles in stock. The total bill for the vehicle would be $79,790. The vehicle would come fully equipped with siren and emergency lights and put into service immediately. Funding for the purchase is available in GL Code 100-3020-26493. Can I get a motion?
I so move.
Motion by Alderman Bolton.
I just want to clarify, the price is $79,900, correct?
79,000. There's two different prices.
Yeah, that's why.
79,790, or is it 900, Chief? Work, I see 79,790.
Can we just approve the higher amount, and then if it's lower, yay?
Because it's not by much.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah,
So we'll
Thank-
approve the 79,9.
yeah, and then if it's less,
That's what is,
Be
in the
happy.
motion is 79,9. So
second.
you second? Okay, second by Alderman Florian. Are there any other questions to the motion?
I believe you indicated it was fully loaded
Thank you.
with
Yes.
everything you need.
That's all lights and sirens and radios and everything installed in it.
Bling, bling.
Comes ready to go. So, yes. No TVs. No TVs.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Alderman Bolton.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Florian.
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item B, a resolution approving change order number 1 to the contract for Aircon Refrigeration and Heating, Inc. for HVAC upgrades for Fire Station 4. Staff recommends City Council approve a resolution approving change order number 1 to the contract with Aircon Refrigeration and Heating, Inc. for HVAC upgrades for Fire Station 1. This contract was initially voted on April 18th, 2022. The original cost was $680,619, with the additional cost of $198,759. It brings the total cost of this contract to $879,378. Are there any questions? Oh, I need a motion, please.
So moved.
I second.
Motion by Alderman Florian, second by Alderman Bolton. Are there any questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Florian.
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item C, a resolution authorizing the procurement of AT&T FirstNet two-way radio system through a joint purchasing agreement. Staff recommends to the City Council to authorize purchasing, commodities, maintenance, and professional services from AT&T FirstNet fiscal year 2024 not to exceed $140,000 and an annual service cost not to exceed $36,000 plus 7.5% interest per addition per year to purchase and install a replacement two-way radio system for the city vehicles. The current system is no longer repairable, with the radio cellular push-to-talk communication systems known as AT&T FirstNet used by municipalities and first responders. AT&T FirstNet purchases are through an Illinois state joint purchasing contract. Joint purchasing is defined exceptions from the city's competitive bidding requirements under Section 2-458, Section I, Section 3 of the City Code. And it is going to be from line item GL 555-9155-26493, line item 555-913-026494, line item 100-9110-24438, and line item 100-103-724801. And this is for Public Works vehicles and the Water Department vehicles. Can I get a motion on the floor?
I so move.
Motion by Alderman Bolton,
Second.
second by Alderman Florian. Are there any questions?
I have a question. Forgive me for not
Alderman
looking
Hayes.
into this, but what's the term of the contract? If it goes up 7.5% per year, how many, is this indefinite, or how many years are we talking about?
There's no minimum or maximum on this. It is an installation and service cost, just like your cell phone service, except it's on an annual basis.
Forgive me. It says cost not to exceed 7.5% per year, the 36,000 plus 7.5%. So what's the 7.5% for?
That's, once this is approved, that'll make it safe for me to have them come back with a $36,500 bill
Got it.
next year.
Okay.
And following year, $38,000.
Okay.
Or we can just come back to council.
No, thanks. It's not unnecessary, but thank you for the clarification.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Hayes,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item D, a resolution approving a settlement and release of all claims for Police Department Employee Compensation Claim Number 190923W009 for a not-to-exceed amount of $50,000. Can I get a motion on the floor?
I so move.
Motion by Alderman Bolton,
Second.
second by Alderman Hayes. Are there any questions to this motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton,
Aye.
Alderman Hayes,
Aye.
Alderman Florian,
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. Item E, a resolution authorizing certain city officials and officers to execute approved contracts with the state of Illinois and directing the city clerk to complete and execute a certificate of authority for state contracts. Can I get a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Hayes. Second.
I'll second it.
Second by Alderman Florian. Are there any questions to this motion?
Would you please elaborate what this is regarding, especially for our constituents?
Who can answer? Is that, this is E, this is the regular contract bids that we get?
Yeah, so essentially, when we are a member of these state collectives for joint purchasing, the state is now requiring that each municipality designate certain city officials or designees to actually execute these contracts for the state. Essentially, it's just a safeguard so they know who should be signing these contracts. Everything will still come through council for procurement purposes, but this is just letting the state know who is the designated signator on contracts.
Do we have anything standing right now that takes care of our state bids, or is it just whatever department?
I don't, ultimately, the mayor, I think, typically signs the contracts, but every now and again, she could have a director sign. It's whoever her designee is. This will actually state who those designees will be by resolution.
Okay.
So give me an example. Elaborate and give an example how this is applied.
So if there's a state contract that the council approves for joint purchasing purposes, like for instance, you're purchasing salt, let's say through the state joint purchasing process, and the council approves the contract, there will only be certain members of the city that will be able to execute that contract. And we're informing the state of who that will be.
So the actual names will be on file with the state, so they'll know.
My guess is it's a safeguard so that if someone is not authorized to sign, the state will kick back the contract and say, this is not one of your designated signatories, so we don't think this contract is valid. We only have, X, Y, and Z person that's authorized on behalf of the city to sign.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? I'm sorry, any other questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Bolton.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Florian.
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye. Motion carried. Item F, a resolution approving a settlement and mutual release agreement with Lecter and Sons, Inc., Lecter and Sons Uniform Rental. The city of Waukegan is settling a dispute amount with Lecter and Sons, Inc., in which the city will pay $3,000 to settle unpaid accounts. Lecter and Sons, Inc. attorney has provided a release which states that payment will be due by March 31st, 2024. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Florian,
Seconded.
second by Alderman Hayes. Any questions to this motion?
I apologize. This was not presented, I don't believe, in our briefing on Thursday. So can we get a little more information about what actually happened with this?
So the fire department and public works both contracted with Lechner to supply uniforms, rugs, mops, things like that, towels. We discontinued service with them. They claimed that, this is probably 3 years ago, I don't know what the exact date on it was. They claimed that we didn't return everything. I can't speak for public works. We fought with them, the director of our program, told them that we did, it went back and forth. Again, it went on and on and on. We work with Attorney Marcus on this to see what our options were because what they were saying was not truthful. And Marcus worked with them and their attorneys on this resolution to finally get it paid out. Again, I can't speak for Public Works on what they claim that they did not return or do. That's just from the fire department side. So it is. And shop towels.
Sorry, Alderman Florian, I didn't hear your comment.
I just said $3,000, that's a lot of rugs or shop towels.
Any other questions? Roll call, please. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Alderman Bolton.
Aye.
Alderman Hayes.
Aye.
Alderman Florian.
Aye.
Alderman Newsom.
Aye, motion carried. We have a audit presentation by Mr. Schultz from 2022-2023. Yes, I'll turn it over to you, Don.
Well, good evening. It looks like we have an audience of friendly faces. The objective this evening is to present the audit in the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year that ended April 30th of 2023. Our auditors Sikich LLP and their managing auditor, Martha Trotter, gave us a clean, that is an unqualified opinion regarding the accuracy, completeness, thoroughness of our financial statements. Due to time constraints, there's always a time constraint when I start talking on these things, it is best that we focus on the citywide financial statements. So we'll focus on the governmental activities and the business activities, business-type activities. The governmental fund activities would consider the general fund, special revenue funds, debt service funds, and capital project funds. Business-type activities would be the water and sewer utility and motor vehicle parking system. When we finish that, we'll go to our largest individual fund, the general fund, and give a summary on that. And then if we still have time, we'll look at our long-term debt obligations. Looking at our long-term debt, especially our pension debt. And we'll look at that moving forward, what we can do to address that. When I joined the mayor's team back in June of 2021, when I came back, my marching orders were pretty specific at that time. We were to create a budget and a financial plan that would be prudent, responsible, and sustainable. Those are the marching orders. Making certain that we took necessary steps at the time to make certain that we were creating a fund balance sufficient to carry us through the hard times, because there's obviously going to be hard times as you go along. With the assistance of a very talented group in the finance team, our Assistant Finance Director, Sherry Martinez, Finance Manager, Sean Nuneg, two senior accountants, Karen Kay and Tyler Scherzel, we were able to accomplish that. And I believe we are stronger today than we've ever been. I've been familiar with the city's finances going back to November of 1983. And we are stronger today than we've been over the last 40 years, for certain. Now, the Finance Department is responsible for preparing a number of financial reports on an annual basis. I see they're on the screen. Some are required and some are supplemental reports that we do. Required, of course, is the annual budget, the annual appropriation ordinance, the annual tax levy, the abatements that go with it, continuing disclosures that we have to do for the benefit of our bondholders, so that we're constantly continuing to disclose our financial well-being to bondholders. Annual TIF reports, certified estimate of revenues, along with the Treasurer's Office. There's also the Treasurer's Report. On a supplemental basis, we prepare a revenue manual, which was submitted to members of the City Council several months ago. We recently completed an internal audit of our financial condition, where we monitor financial trends over a period of time. We hope to be able to present that to the City Council, perhaps at our next Finance Committee meeting, if time allows, in April. We also prepare a 5-year plan for the general fund, which we update, give our projections for 5 years. And we're working now with the engineering department, our departments, and other operating departments to prepare a 5-year operating and capital improvement program for the next 5 years. Now, tonight's discussion is going to center on one of those reports, and that's the annual financial report, what they call the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. As a start, we should identify some of the highlights. I'm not sure if that's in the beginning slides. There we go. Oh, I'm sorry. Sherry was right. I was wrong. I'm going out of order. When you look at the annual financial report, or what you call the audit, it's divided into 3 sections. Those of you that have a copy, you can look at it online. There's the introductory section that has a listing of all the principal officials of the town, an organizational chart, and a letter of transmittal that's provided by the Finance Department. The financial section is the second section of the audit. It has the independent auditor's report, which gives the unqualified opinion on the basis of the findings of the auditors. It has what is called an MD&A, the Management Discussion Analysis, prepared by the Finance Department that summarizes the major activities and funds of the city. Then there's the citywide financial statements, which combines all the individual funds into a grouping, whether they're governmental activities or business type activities. Then there's the fund financial statements that separates individual funds, whether they're major funds or non-major funds. And then there's the notes of the financial statements prepared by the auditors. And then there's the statistical section. The statistical section contains financial trends, revenue capacity, debt capacity, demographic and economic information, and basic operating information for the departments in the city as a whole. As you said, in terms of fund classifications, you see on the screen, those four to the left are the governmental activities, and that's what we'll go over in more detail. The middle section, proprietary funds. One of them, the enterprise funds, is made up of the two business type activities. Those are run like a private business would be run. And then your fiduciary funds, your pension funds, essentially. Highlights. There's a number of highlights that we should identify in fiscal year 23. One was getting a clean, unqualified opinion from the auditors. In terms of the governmental funds, those are those four major funds we talked about. Revenues exceeded expenditures by $23.9 million, or by 19%. The net position, that is the difference between our assets and our liabilities, improved by $24.5 million, or by 12.5%. Total assets within governmental funds increased 53.8% over the past 6 years, from 181 million to 279 million, an increase in governmental fund assets. Governmental fund expenses were only 84% of revenues. Basically, we're able to save 16% of our revenue money, not spending it. Fund balance within the four governmental funds improved by $24.6 million, or from 70 million to 94 million, for an increase of 35%. Governmental fund revenues increased by 23.7 million, or by 18.9%. A good part of that you're going to find in the general fund, where revenues exceeded expenditures in the general fund by almost $19.7 million in this past year. In terms of total expenditures, you can see our focus has been on public safety, which is 79.7% of total expenditures in the governmental funds. Streets, bridges, public works projects, 14.4%. In terms of general fund, revenues exceeded the budget. Mayor said be very conservative, be very prudent. We were. And actual revenues came in $15.7 million greater than our original budget. Of course, we amended the budget. We amended it during the course of the year, but that's simply taking care of excessive revenues. There weren't any really excessive expenditures to amend, but we wanted to take note of the extra revenue coming in. But I wanted to compare it to the original budget so that you see we were $15.7 million greater than the original budget, 17% greater. Actual expenditures in the general fund, we were $4 million under budget. That's all of our operating departments. Central services, the building department, fire department, police department, planning, economic development. We were all under budget, $4 million. When you take the overage of 15.7 on revenues and under by $4 million, you get your $19.7 million improvement to our fund balance. The general fund balance increased from $40.6 million to $50.4 million in our general fund balance. Unassigned fund balance, that's a fund balance that's not assigned for a particular purpose or is obligated or committed in some fashion, rose, what do I have here? I don't have it there. Unassigned fund balance stands at 84.4% of the total fund balance. 84% of it, of the 50 million or 42 million, is unassigned. In terms of the business type activities, The net position, again, that's assets less liabilities, increased from 85.6 million to 136.1 million, 59.2% increase. Revenues exceeded expenditures in our business type activities by $4.2 million, or 29.6%. Expenditures in our business type activities were only 77% of revenues. You can see some of these numbers in the first table. And you see the revenues in the for governmental funds went from 125.8 to 149 for an increase of 18.6. Expenditures increased from 109 to 125. But for 2023, you can see the excess of revenues over expenditures, 23.8 million. There was a $605,000 prior period adjustment. Ending balance increased from 70 million to 94 million. In terms of business activities in Table 2, same type of result. Revenues exceeded expenditures by 4.2 million. Fund balance increased from 91 to 95.7 million, 4.7%. Statement of net assets. Our net position at the start of the year for governmental funds was a negative 195.7. That's because our unfunded liabilities, our long-term obligations, are greater than our assets. And we're going to look in a few minutes at our long-term obligations. You can see what makes up that large total. But there was an improvement of $24.5 million. Even though the net position is still negative, it's an improvement over the prior year. An improvement of 24 million or 12.5%. And you can see that with Table 3 that's on the screen now. Business type activities, same result. Net assets at the beginning of the year, 91.5 million. At the end of the year, our net assets grew to 95.7 million. Our net position improved by 4.2 million, 4.6%. In more detail of that is in Table 4. Table 5 shows our increase in our assets. If you look going back just 6 years to 2018, our governmental activities had $181 million in assets. We're now up to $279.6 million in assets. A good portion of that is cash and cash equivalents. Business type activities increased from 85.5 to 136. There was a 55.5% increase in citywide total assets. Next table shows just the classification of revenues and expenditures. Revenues in governmental and business type activities for $167.8 million. 37 million or 22% charges for services, maybe water and sewer charges, maybe license fees, charges for services in the general fund, permits, licenses, fees of various kinds. Operating grants, property taxes, other taxes. Taxes make up a large portion of governmental expenditures. Over half of our revenue in governmental activities come from taxes. On the business side, on the expense side, $139.6 million in expenses. Public safety, $84.3 million, or 60% of those expenses. It's 60% of total citywide expenses, but it's 77% of governmental expenses, governmental fund expenses. Between what we spend on public safety and public works, you're looking at 78% and 14%. You're looking at 91% of our money is on streets, sidewalks, alleys, bridges, public works projects, and public safety. The rest is spent on general administration, which is less than 5% of our total governmental budget is spent on administration. Table 7 would show revenues, expenses, and you can see that the revenues over expenses and governmental funds, 19%, only 84% expenditures against revenues. Business type, we spent 77% of the money we brought in. The rest went into the asset portion of our business type activities. Table 8, in terms of statement of activities, you can see the general expenses, where they went. General government, $5.8 million, which is less than 5%. Basically, you can call that overhead charges. Less than 5% of the total goes for administrative costs. Public safety, $84 million. $18 million for streets and public works. General fund highlights. Actual revenues exceeded the budget by $15.6 million, 17% greater than we budgeted at the start of the year. When mayor said to be prudent, be conservative, be responsible, I believe we were. Expenses, you can see we were under budget by almost $4 million in the general fund. This is true not only of fiscal year 23, but it's also true of fiscal year 22. The last 2 years, our revenues have exceeded budget, our expenses have been under budget for both of those years. We were able to increase our fund balance in the general fund from 28 million to 50 million in 2 years, in the last 2 years alone. You can see in the terms of the general fund, the fund balance went from 24.5 million 10 years ago to 50.3 million today. The unassigned portion went from only 11.9 million to 42.4 million in the last 10 years. And you see the big increase in the last 2 years alone. That should be pretty evident on the chart that you see in front of you. You see those last 2 years of big increase in both the fund balance, the total fund balance, and the unassigned fund balance. We got through that pretty quick, so let's look at obligations, our long-term obligations. And that's going to be a focus of ours as we budget forward in future years. General long-term debt stands at $88.2 million. It'll be down to $82 million at the end of this year. It'll be down at $77 million at the end of fiscal year 25. But 20% of our long-term obligations is our general obligation debt. $40 million that we just issued back in 2021, and that was for the McGaw Park TIF. That's paid totally by the TIF district. It'll never see the tax bill. It'll never be on the tax bill. So you subtract that 40 million from the 88, you're down to $48 million. And of that, a good portion, 70% of that, is self-supported, is covered by home rule sales tax. That those also will never see the property tax bill. So a good portion of our debt's going to be paid by McGaw Park TIF, by home rule sales tax. You can see the large unfunded or large long-term obligation is your police pension and your fire pension. If you look at that second column from the right, add those two together, you have, what is that, $267.1 million in long-term obligation. And it's unfunded obligation. That's the net. That's the assets. If you take the total assets, subtract the liability, that's what we still owe. We owe that much more than the assets that those funds have. Our total long-term obligations, $451 million. In terms of general government obligations, you can see we're making headway in the last couple of years. In terms of as a percentage of assessed valuation, it's going down from a high of 8% back in 21 down to 5.9% at the end of 23. So again, that big increase in 21 was the TIF bond. Then there was another bond back in 2018 that caused that spike in 2019. In this past year, in '23, we refunded or we retired $5.8 million in GO debt. This year, we'll retire $5.1 million, and that balance just keeps going down. In terms of our long-term obligations, you can see this chart. It's hard for you to see those numbers. Hopefully, if you have a copy of the handout, it's a little easier for you. But you can see what makes up our total debt. The GO bond debt, $88 million. We have compensated absences. You know what compensated absences are. If all of our employees are to leave today, what would we owe them for their accrued and unused time, whether it be vacation or sick time or personal or comp time, whatever it might be. But you can see the obligation for police and fire. Next page shows the same obligations for the business type activities. $31.5 million at the end of '23 for the revenue bonds. In terms of the police and firefighters' pension funds, you can see both the assets and the liabilities, so that you can see the unfunded portion in police. The net pension liability is $150 million. Fire, $116.9 million, total of $267. Our percent funded is under 50%. Our funded percentage has averaged less than 45 or 46% over the last 6 years. We're not even at the 50% mark. How this affects us is that how much we need to levy each year for the employer's contribution. As a percentage of payroll, you can see that for police pension, is 64% of payroll goes towards pension funds. So a $100,000 officer actually costs $164,000 with the pension. Same thing with the firefighter, 65% towards the pension costs. As we pay down that obligation, those percentages will go down. Next couple slides, somebody shows some charts. Police pension, you can see where it's been as 44%, 44%, 39% funding level. So at the end of the year at 47.3% funded. Fire pensions, next chart, same story. 45%, 45%, 40%, 46%. Finally, if you go to the second slide from the end, you see our unfunded liabilities. One more. There you go. 48% of our total long-term obligations are unfunded. So that's what we need to address as we move forward. This shows pretty clearly on the last slide where it shows the relationship between our assets and our liabilities. Our assets are only sitting at under 50% of our liabilities. But all in total, what you see for the last 2 years, excellent results in terms of our governmental funds, our governmental activities, and our business activities. Revenues have exceeded budget. Expenditures have been below budget. We've built up healthy reserves in our general fund and throughout all our governmental funds. And that ends our discussion. And hopefully there's no questions.
Thank you, Don. Can we ask you questions offline? Did you have any questions? Oh, okay. For our reports and communications, in the interest of time, it's almost 6 o'clock. We do have a sheet with our reports on there, and you also have your other reports and communications. That is, be nothing else. Can I get a motion to adjourn at 6 p.m.?
So moved.
Motion by Alderman Florian, second by Alderman Bolton. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We're adjourned at 6 o'clock p.m.